Do not expect perfection. If you want perfection, go to a recording studio. It's very easy to do. If your goal is a perfect performance, it's going to be so sterile and boring, no one's going to want to hear it.
You're listening to Artistry with Heart, a musician's wellness podcast. I'm Stephanie Lynn Bernards. Today, we are having a conversation with Professor Lisa Ann Marsh, an incredible pianist, instructor, and composer who is notorious for her ability to lead injured musicians to healing. After spending 19 years as a registered nurse, Professor Marsh received a master's degree in classical piano at Portland State University. She studied piano technique for 8 years after that and now directs the Coordinate Movement program at Portland State University, a musician's wellness program that she developed herself. Lisa has a striking ability to write compositions that fuse the natural and supernatural worlds while deeply embodying the complexity of human emotion. I'm especially excited to interview Lisa today because she was my piano professor at Portland State University while I was pursuing my master's degree in classical piano performance, and I received my license in body mapping under her guidance and mentorship. Lisa, I am so excited and honored to have you with me today. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so great to be with you today. And the sun came out for our conversation, too.
It sure did.
You have easily been one of the most influential mentors in my life. And I love being in your presence because I feel like I'm always learning from you. So, let's just start from the beginning, I suppose. You started singing when you were 4 years old. And you started playing piano when you were 5. Is that right?
That's right. I had an early start.
So can you tell me about your earlier years and how your musical journey started?
Well, there was a lot of music in my home. My father played the trumpet. My mom played the piano. There were constantly records playing of classical music, Rachmaninoff's Second Piano Concerto, Sibelius's First Symphony. So I had a lot of exposure to music, and I think I just knew from a very early age that the way I wanted to express myself was through music. So I started my piano lessons and kept singing and basically never stopped.
What was the thing that drew you back then? Do you think it was just exposure, or from an early age you were just like, I love this, I want to do this?
I think when a person accesses their creative power, and I do believe all human beings have creative powers, once you access it, it's just this well inside of you that it's there, and it's there forever, and you just know it. And it's only when you deny it or ignore it that you run into trouble. If you just stay open to it, wherever it takes you, there's going to be a lot of joy in your life. So it really wasn't a decision. It was a calling that I just followed.
I love that. You started writing pretty early as well, right? Like 14 or something, you started composing?
Yes, I had a number of different piano teachers, and I did study with one professor at a local university when I was about 14, and he was the one that encouraged me to write down some of my ideas. So I wrote my first piano etude when I was 14, and I didn't think much of it, but I was also writing songs just, for myself, and I wasn't taking myself very seriously as a composer until I went to the University of Oregon some years later and became a composition and piano major. So in those years, you were composing, and then you went to the University of Oregon? Well, I started at the University of Michigan.
Okay.
I was a voice and piano major, and then we moved out west, started a commune. That's another story. And then I went back to music school. But in the meantime, I got my nursing degree because I needed to have a job that I could depend on, some income. So I really started thinking more about composition when I went to the University of Oregon and wrote some pieces. But it was just difficult for me to imagine myself being that well-developed in so many areas, being a pianist, being a nurse, being a composer. So eventually, after I left the University of Oregon and we moved to Portland so my husband could go to medical school, the composition part dropped off for a while. And in fact, everything I had written went into a box, and I lost track of it completely for a while.
Wow. How long is a while?
Oh my gosh, probably 10 years at least. found it in the attic. It's like, oh, yeah, that's right. I wrote some pieces.
Why'd you stop?
Well, while I was in the throes of my nursing career, I also had gone back and got my undergraduate degree in piano performance. And then I started having my children. I have 3 daughters, and it just got to be a little crazy, between being a mother, being a nurse, being at that point, finishing up my degree, thinking I'd really like to go to graduate school. And at one point, my husband and I just got to talking. He said, this is too many things. You need to let something go. I said, well, I'm going to let the nursing go because I want to stick with the music. And it was really wonderful because by making that decision, I allowed myself to step into a part of my musical identity that I didn't even know was there, which was to help musicians heal. And so I got to take all my knowledge from nursing and apply it to a very specialized area that I could then go very deeply into for many years. And I'm still, always trying to refine my skill and my abilities in that area.
So what was the moment that you decided that you wanted to help injured musicians? Was it one moment? Were you injured yourself? What led you to this decision to then translate your healing work with nursing into musicianship?
Well, I actually was injured. I had tendonitis, and it would flare up after every concert. And my teacher and life mentor, Harold Gray, said, I think you need to go to the Taubman Institute and learn more about piano technique because there's something you're doing that is not working. So I started out at the Taubman Institute, and I was there for about 9 years. And then I also met up with Barbara Conable, where I studied body mapping. So I was able to fuse those two types of knowledge. And I think along the way, I realized that with this combination, I was going to be able to help a lot of people, and also just got really surprised at the number of people who were musicians who were hurt. So many. And I thought, well, this is a good place for me to be. Because it's all surrounded by music, which is what my true core is, I think, as a musician. But at the same time, then, I get to help in the community in this way.
Yeah, definitely. And you are the founder of the Coordinate Movement program at Portland State University. Is that right?
That's true.
And, I guess in this moment of, going back to school, getting your undergraduate and the master's degree in piano performance, developing injury yourself, and then studying, through body mapping and Taubman, how to heal. What was the moment where you were like, this needs to be at the university level? Was it because you just saw the need? You felt like you needed it, so you wanted to give it to other people? Like, what was that moment like?
Well, I think it was a fairly daring moment because I just decided to write a 1-page proposal that would describe a program I would create. And at that time, it was specifically for injured pianists. And I took it to the then chairman of the Portland State University School of Music, who happened to be Harold Gray, my mentor. I put the proposal on his desk. He read it and said, yes, let's do it.
Wow.
So I'm telling you all the story because it's really okay to dream big, but you've got to at least take a chance on those dreams because there's always a chance someone will say yes.
Amen to that. Yeah. Were you nervous?
Kind of. I probably was. I was more nervous about those opportunities at that age than I am now. Mm-hmm. Now that I'm a bit older, I'm not so nervous about things because I realize that all ideas are good ideas, but not all of them can come to fruition at the time that you have them, or maybe at all. That doesn't mean it wasn't a good idea.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I think it's really easy to feel like a failure if you had an idea and it didn't, as you say, come to fruition. But maybe it just wasn't the right timing and it needs to find a different vessel. But to not be too hard on yourself. The idea that you tried initially didn't work, you know? Yeah, but it's really gratifying when things do work out. it is a sign that, yes, I am on the right path. So that's really cool. And you sure were, because you've led hundreds, if not thousands, of musicians to healing. And I am curious, like when you were developing this course and you were working with injured musicians, and as you still today work with injured musicians, where's the first place you go with a student? Like, I'm sure it's totally subjective to the person. Are you watching how they move? Are you watching their places of balance? Are you sensing their energy? Where is the first place you go? And if it's not one place, I guess just anything you want to say about that first moment with a suffering musician.
Interesting. So you're inquiring about how I might observe someone that comes to me probably for a lesson. Mm-hmm. I try to step back and expand my awareness of that person to include as many aspects as I can without jumping to any conclusions or formulating any judgments. So to be more specific, obviously I'm watching how they move, because sometimes just a movement will show me what the problem is. I want to check in on their emotional state. Are they extremely upset? I want to check in on their pain state. Are they hurting a lot? Are they afraid? So I try to get some idea about these things, and obviously we'll ask some questions as well. I think it's really important to allow a lot of space for these musicians when they come in to be evaluated, because it takes a lot of courage to do that, to come in and say, I'm hurt, I need help. And so I try to allow for a lot of space. I try to really calm myself down and just be in a more calm place. And obviously I ask them questions about where they're hurting and how long, and eventually I might ask them a bit about their lifestyle. I'll close my answer with something that Stephanie, because you live this and teach it. The mind and body and the spirit are integrally connected. So there really is no way to help a musician heal without addressing all three spheres. Mm. And, the emotional being is kind of part of that, but there are so many spheres of being that need to be aligned for a person to heal and then to start to walk their path to their full potential. So all of those areas need to be addressed at some point.
You don't hear many instructors, especially at the university, talking about those three spheres, right? It's interesting because we have such an epidemic of injury and also, performance anxiety and other sorts of issues. And there's not this kind of underlying overarching theme of addressing these three spheres of awareness. And I just am wondering, for yourself, how do you honor yourself in mind, body, and spirit? Can you speak to that?
Well, it is a challenge. It's a huge challenge. And I'd like to say it gets easier as you get older, but it doesn't. Mm-hmm. It's a daily practice. It's a daily catching oneself going down a rabbit hole of jealousy or mean-spiritedness or self-deprecation. I mean, there's so many rabbit holes you can go down. Yeah. So I really try every morning to have an intention of what it is I want to focus on in that particular day. And then I go through the different spheres to identify how am I going to honor my body? How am I going to honor my mind? How am I going to honor my emotional being? How am I going to honor my spirit? I kind of throw emotional in there because I think it's in between spirit and body. What are the things that I'm going to do? And then I also think about my relationships, because relationships are so key to our life on this planet. So I really do give it some thought every day before I even get out of my bed. Where am I headed? What are the things that are important? And then I try to assess it during the day. Many people benefit from journaling. I'm not a big journaler, but I am a person that rehearses in my mind how I want to conduct myself on that particular day, what I want to focus on.
Yeah, and coming back to that daily, I think, is a super important skill and task. And Yeah, I always ask that question to people that I interview. How do you honor your mind, body, spirit? And it goes in so many different directions, and sometimes people ask me to, ask that question in a different way. But I love that you keep that in your awareness and revisit those spheres daily. It's a great reminder personally. So have you yourself ever struggled with any level of performance anxiety?
I love this question because I have a concert coming up. So I'm premiering a couple original works, and I'm playing the piano on a piece of a friend of mine's. And I realized because I've been practicing a lot, what I was fearful of. And I was fearful of the piece that my colleague wrote, because it's pretty tricky. I have no fear when I'm playing my own pieces. Yeah. So I think as I evolve more as a musician, I'll probably gravitate more to playing my own music. It's really instructive and wonderful to play other people's music, and it really creates a nice connection within the community. But I have to say, if for me to have zero performance anxiety, I just play my own music. I have no fear. It's the oddest thing. It's like, if I play a note the composer didn't write, I'm the composer, so I can play that note. Maybe I just changed it. Yeah. Whereas, particularly if I'm playing a piece of someone who's a dear friend of mine, I really would like it to be very, very good. So yes, I still do have a little performance anxiety, and I just try to talk myself out of unnecessary perfectionism, out of being overly judgmental, and just accept who I am as a pianist. And this is as good as I can be. I'm not the best pianist in the world, but I'm the best I can be.
Yeah. Well, when I was studying with you, getting my master's, you helped me tremendously with the aspect of performance anxiety. And, it still rears its head. It's something that I think isn't always just one thing. It's a very complex web. But I remember there were some things that you did to help me, such as, going back to that whole mind, body, spirit. You didn't really say it that way, but you always said, prioritize exercise before the performance, prioritize deep breathing, limit how much caffeine you have, drink chamomile tea, consider beta blockers, get acupuncture, get those seeds you put in your ears. And I think all of those, I needed all of those in my arsenal at the time. And I've learned since then that, performance anxiety does face us in all these different ways, and we face it. I'm curious if you have any ways that you help your students who have to play other people's music, or that, are getting their degree. How do you help a student work through this sort of a thing? Maybe it is just write your own music.
Well, it's not so much write your own music. I do still play music by other composers. I think it has a little bit to do with owning the music that you're going to play. So you have to own it in some way. You have to infuse it with your own interpretation, with your own passion. And then, taking it back a step, you have to have some say in the selection. You can't be just given a piece. Here you're going to play this Bach prelude and fugue, but what if you hate it? So you have to be able to have some choice, and then to infuse it with your own musical persona, and then to be very, very prepared, over-prepared. Then they have all the things you talk about, keeping your adrenaline down, doing the chamomile tea, getting acupuncture if you want, exercising, breathing. And then so important, do not expect perfection. If you want perfection, go to a recording studio. It's very easy to do. If your goal is a perfect performance, it's going to be so sterile and boring, no one's going to want to hear it.
Yeah. I have tried to express that in a number of different ways to my students, and some people just don't want to hear that answer.
No, they don't.
And I'm like, how have we come up with these other ideas of perfectionism in our society? A lot of it's computer generated or machines or human created or AI. Yeah. There is perfection, but it's not human. So yeah, I really appreciate you sharing about that. So As the director founder of the Musicians Wellness Program, can you just speak a little bit to what that offers and specifically to body mapping and how you've seen the transformation in your own life and with the students you've worked with? Can you just speak a little bit about what the Musicians Wellness Program at Portland State offers and how it all came together, and anything else you want to share about body mapping specifically?
Thank you. Well, as I mentioned previously, the program started as a resource for injured pianists, and it has since grown to a full wellness program for all musicians. Currently, the courses we offer are offered for music majors only, but we do have community outreach events that anyone can attend. So we haven't left the community behind, but we're focusing on our music majors. We have the body mapping, where the musicians learn about anatomy and physiology, so they can learn the truth about their bodies and they can move with ease. And we know that everything we create in terms of sound is created by a movement. So musicians learn about their bodies and how they move. That class is particularly powerful, and that particular class is undergoing evaluation through course evaluation, and probably starting next year some actual research on the before and after for musicians who come into the course and when they leave, and what they've learned and what's changed with their movement and their pain level or discomfort. So that's that is the center of the program. But we also have yoga for musicians, which is a wonderful resource for people that want to exercise. And we also have wellness for musicians, which is more of a survey course that covers all aspects of wellness: nutrition, exercise, meditation. We have an Alexander technique teacher. We talk about pretty much every aspect you can think of over that 10-week course. So I'm really thrilled about it because I feel like musicians get to actually put their money to a place that's about them. When they come to my class, this is a class about you. It's all about you. So I think it's been really beneficial. In fact, the most common response I get on course evaluations is, this class should be required for all musicians. That's how they feel when they leave. And, it's not me. I have wonderful colleagues such as Professor Bernard's here and Professor Todd Marston and Professor Liz Cole. I have these wonderful colleagues that are just shining examples of wellness themselves and how they conduct themselves. So our team is just, I think, extremely passionate and powerful, and we've created a place where musicians can really learn how to live a healthy life and reach the full potential of their musicianship.
Yeah, it's all about having the right team and people who have done the work themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, so all the people that you mentioned, myself included, have had quite a road of working through issues and finding things that help us and finding a relationship with music and wellness that have allowed us to then bring that to other people as we pursue it ourselves. It's a lifelong thing, but, a lot of the time people just see the final product and they're like, oh, they must just always be this way. It's like, no, it's a daily thing, right? Daily revisiting. But yeah, that's great. And with the body mapping component, can you just share a little bit about how you feel the transformational power affects musicians specifically, I guess, in a little nugget?
Sure. So a body map is a term that neuroscientists have used for probably 50 years. Body maps are actual configurations in our brain. They're maps in our brain which represent how we think of certain parts of our body. These maps govern how we move. So if the maps are off, the movement is off. If the maps are completely wrong, you're probably going to be seeing someone using their body in a way that leads to injury. So in body mapping, we uncover the body maps, the way the musician thinks about their body. We correct them, thus correcting the movement, and very often easing or relieving the symptoms. And this happens time and again. So it's very scientifically based, and it's being offered all over the world. The Body Mapping Educators are an international group, and Professor Bernards and I are both members of that group. So it's not something we made up. And, it's happening everywhere, and there are thousands of musicians who are benefiting from it.
Yeah, witnessing the transformational power of it feels like magic. It's really amazing to watch people open up to themselves and become embodied. So thank you for sharing a little bit about that. And people can find out more about body mapping at bodymap.org and also at Lisa's website, which I'll share in the show notes and later on in this episode as well. But yeah, if you are injured or if you need support, you're not alone and there are resources. So I'm curious, as a composer, as an instructor, as a performer, how do you deal with the concept of the inner critic or the inner judge that so many of us face? Does it show its face to you? And if it does, how and in what ways do you choose to respond?
I think the inner critic shows her or his or their face to every creative person. So that's everybody, because everyone has creative powers, right? So yes, it shows up for me. It shows up. So I think, first of all, it needs to be noticed, because if you just start to tamp it down, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. So the first thing would be to notice. And I'll give an example. So I'm working on this piece for Bonnie Mix that I'm going to perform on the 29th, and it's very difficult. The patterns are constantly changing. I'm lucky if I can get a good fingering. I cannot get it up to tempo. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm never going to get this. That's the critic, right? I'm never going to get this. Well, this is kind of a strange way that the critic went away, but I want to talk about it as a possibility. So I thought, I'm going to listen to this recording she gave me, because then, maybe I can play along with it or something. So I'm listening to the recording. Darn, this pianist is red hot. I mean, this person is playing two tempo, no perfect. I'm never going to get it there. I got to see who this person is. I look on the SoundCloud notes. Oh, it's Lisa Marsh. I was like, well, wait a minute. I'd completely forgotten I recorded it. So then I thought, there's an inner critic I really need to listen to, because apparently I can play this piece. So maybe most inner critics are like that. They're addressing some idea you have of yourself that's not even you. You're not that weak, inadequate person. You're this person that played no perfect at tempo 10 years ago. So I really try to notice it and then put it into perspective. Am I really a terrible pianist? And no,
yeah,
I'm a really good pianist. Yeah. Am I really not going to ever get this? Wait a minute, I've gotten every piece I've ever tried, except maybe a few Ravel pieces, and I just put those away and said, I don't want to play that. Mm-hmm. So, you really have to put it in perspective, and you have to believe in yourself, and you can go back and look at all the successes you had. Wow. And that one just came out of the blue. I was like, I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
What's just really funny.
Wow.
And the weirdest thing is I went from not being able to play it to I can almost play it to tempo right after I saw that.
It's amazing. It's all in your head.
It's all in your head.
So much of that garbage is in your head, right?
Right.
Wow. That is amazing. It's incredible. The voices sound so real and so true, and they really know. Wow. That's cool. And I always encourage others as well as myself to always just acknowledge it, but then try to decide if it really fits into your sphere of truth and what you're actually striving for. Mm-hmm. So that's really great. Thanks for sharing. And you said something in a previous conversation that really inspired me when I was speaking with you, and I want to just say it back to you and see if you can say more about it or how you came to this realization. You said, I am a firm believer in powers that human beings have that have not been named or explored. And one of those abilities is to put our spirit before our ego. When I'm able to access that power of putting my spirit before my ego, then I'm able to compose with more flow and more joy. I'm able to practice with more ease and enjoyment, and I'm able to perform without fear. So this is what I strive for, to put my spirit before my ego. So how did you come to that realization? I mean, can you say more about this revelation?
Well, I like the way I said it.
Well, your words.
Thank you for reminding me of that very important hierarchy. I think that it has to do with more than just music. If we put our spirit before our ego, we're going to be more compassionate and connected in relationships. We're going to be more compassionate and connected to the earth around us. We're going to be more understanding of very difficult situations, because spirit, to me, in its largest definition, is everybody's spirit. It's not just my spirit. It's the great spirit, to use a Native American term. It's the spirit. It's the higher consciousness we all have access to, no matter what your religious or spiritual beliefs. The best of the best of the best of everything human is available. And the ego, although it's very necessary, tends to narrow that down to, what do I need? Mm-hmm. What's good for me? I've got to get mine.
Yeah.
And that's important to a certain degree. We all need to survive, and we need to acknowledge ourselves. However, whenever possible, to open up to that larger sphere of the higher consciousness, to the spirit, I think it just makes everything better. Mm-hmm. And it has a resonating quality that goes beyond whatever that particular performance or interaction or anything. It's like it's reverberating throughout all of humankind.
It's a great reminder. I think that it's easy to have the ego permeate different areas of our lives without even knowing it. And I like this concept of whenever you feel it cropping up, and I know it has a lot of different faces, to ask that question of, how do I put my spirit before my ego, and seeing that bigger picture before, just thinking about yourself. So it's a really helpful reminder, and I think I need it often, daily. I think we all do.
I know I do.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm driving.
Yeah.
That's where it really falls off.
It's funny. This is not related, but I love the bumper sticker. It said, "No, I don't know how to fucking drive."
Beautiful.
Beautiful. I was like, that's true. Just most of the time, it's like, I'm the one at fault here, but I'm the one getting pissed off at everyone. There's so many parallels. Okay, so thank you for sharing this. So when you look back over your years of life experience, singing at 4, composing around 14, joining a commune, being a registered nurse, a wife, a parent, a grandparent, an instructor, a performer, on and on, can you see the connections that were made that brought you to where you are today? So often, for me at least, in the moment, life can feel like a blur, and I feel like my creative path is unclear. But once I look back, I can see this intricate design, right, that was helping me to get exactly where I needed to be and to help me get to where I'm going. I'm curious, is this true for you, this kind of web of experience that you have? How has it helped you culminate into the person you are today, musically and otherwise? And yeah, can you speak to that? Is there a pattern? Is there a design when you look back on everything you've done?
I think you can see the pattern and the design in hindsight. It's very difficult, if not impossible, to have it projected from the present into the future, because you don't know what's going to happen. You know what you're longing for, what you intend to do. You don't know how it's going to turn out. So yes, when I look back, everything happened for a reason. Even the things that I thought were terrible happened for a reason. Quick example, when I was a nurse at Good Samaritan, I applied for the nurse manager job. Well, I didn't get it. Well, that's one of the reasons I quit nursing and went back to school for music. So these things happen, and you think that they're terrible, but they're steering you somewhere else. And so you just go with it. And it's a beautiful pattern, and it's not just me or just you. Everybody has a purpose. Everybody has a path. Everybody has a beautiful web of their life that's being constructed. And I guess, along the lines of the Great Spirit, I do believe in a higher power. I believe that we're being guided, and if we have the right intention and we have the awareness and we have the listening, we will be on the right path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and trusting yourself and trusting that if you feel called to do something, just keep making one more step in that direction, even if it is unclear. You said something that I loved, which is, I give myself 10 years
Yes.
with every new activity or passion or composing, I think is what you were referring to.
Yes, and thank you for that reminder, because I have a new passion that I think is going to take 10 years.
What is your new passion?
My new passion is to establish a series of research studies that prove the impact of body mapping on musicians. And I've been toying with it, and doors are starting to open. So this will be, I'll give myself 10 years. Thank you for that reminder. I don't have to do it today.
Oh, well, when I first heard you say that, I remind myself of that daily, that, I should be further along, or I should insert any sort of thing, which shoulds are never helpful. But there's this expectancy, especially as adults, that if we start something new, we should at least be good at it within a year, tops. And I think that it's just so, that's obviously the messaging that we get, but it's not true, and I think reminding ourselves, being patient with ourselves, trusting our path, trusting that, this whole web behind us makes so much sense. How much more clear will it be if we just keep walking down the path and trusting our instincts and trusting our truth, even if the exact details are unclear.
Right.
Right.
I like that very much.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I've been toying with that a lot, because I think the idea or the message, especially as musicians or really any adult, is like, what is the thing that you do, and stick with that so that you're really good at it. I think we all have like these things that are calling to us, but as you evolve, I think that thing, whatever it is, starts to add more complexity and nuance, and is asking you to take more risks and try new things and expand and grow. And so that's where you really need to be a learner again, a beginner again, and start over those new 10 years every 10 years, or something. I don't know. So, thanks for expanding on that. So you chose to share a beautiful and evocative original piece, White Coral. Can you tell us about the inspiration behind this piece and what it means to you?
I've been writing music that expresses what I'm observing happening on our planet for the 10-year period that I have given myself to really call myself a composer. I keep returning to themes of nature, environmentalism, and now that I have at least 3 grandchildren, I am feeling even more strongly that we need to raise awareness for what's happening on our planet. So I had read about the bleached coral, and I think many people know about it. However, the piece, which is written for piano and seashell instruments, is really meant to take the audience to the place where they're meditating on this problem. The entire middle section of the piano piece is played on white keys to exemplify the white coral, and the shell instruments, which are all made of shells, are accompanying the piano in a very haunting, almost scary way. And I feel like even just taking the time to write the piece and to do a little research on what's happening with the coral, my own awareness was deepened, and many people that heard the piece were also moved by this event and started thinking more about it. So I've really wanted to do more about the environment, and this is one way that I feel like I can at least help people think about it more.
Yeah, when I heard it live, it was such an emotional experience for me, and I wasn't expecting to cry. And I think there was this moment where I think it was you and George Cole again, and he was playing, I don't know if it was a conch or something, but it created this bellow of a whale. And it just like hit me in the gut. And I think it was just this combination of like, I mean, these sounds were literally created from shells from the sea. And this song is representing so much of the things that are happening in our planet. And I don't know. I don't think that somebody sitting down and telling me about the effects of global warming would have impacted me as deeply as hearing it in that deeply primal way and musical way. It's so powerful how music can expand our awarenesses. What is your why in music? I'm sure it's shifted and changed over the years, and you've kind of already answered it, but I like to ask the question to everybody that I interview anyway, because I think it's easy to get lost in this abyss of what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think sometimes grounding ourselves on some foundational why can be helpful.
I consider music, and in particular the compositions I write and perform, to be the most pure representation of who I am.
That's a perfect answer. And perfect's not even real. No, that's great, right? Like, music is the expression of who we are. And all that other stuff doesn't matter all of a sudden, right? And I try to daily ask myself, what's my why? Because it's really distracting to be in the world and to have all these different things pull you. And I think coming back to what is the thing that continues to draw me back to this mode of expression in a way that's really genuine to me. So thank you. Yeah, beautifully put. And is there any nugget of wisdom or inspiration that you could give to musicians out there who want to find and embrace their authentic musical voice, or just any little tidbit that you feel like maybe someone out there might need to hear?
I would say listen to your inner creative spirit and never give up on your passion. Don't require other people to validate you. Go forward with what you love with faith.
Thank you for that. This has been so fun, so soul enriching and inspiring for me. And I know so many people are going to benefit from everything that you shared today, Lisa. Thank you so much for being with me today and for sharing your truth. It's so inspiring. Is it true that people can get in touch with you at your website, lisaannmarsh.com?
Yes. Okay. Yes, there's a contact me tab there.
So friends out there, make sure to get in touch with Lisa at lisaannmarsh.com. You'll also see that in the show notes, and you can get in touch with her, hear more of her original compositions, and even some of your sheet music too, right? Yeah. So for pianists out there that want to play her music, she is offering it up. So definitely check that out. Thank you so much for joining me today on Artistry with Heart and for sharing your wisdom with the world, Lisa.
Thank you, Stephanie. It's been a real pleasure.